are lucky enough to have a call in from CAPS,
Yep.
Californians for population stabilization.
There you go.
It's not a word that I should ever not
go.
be able to pronounce easily. And he's on the phone now, so we're about ready. I think I'll let him tell us just a little bit more about himself. So, Rick, are you there? Rick Oberlink, and by the way, I'm Richard Carpenter. This is Bruce Broussard.
I remember you, Rick. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, this is Rick Oberlink. I'm with Californians for Population Stabilization, or CAPS. The name is a mouthful, so it's just CAPS, CAPS for short. And glad to talk with you about resource issues, immigration, population.
Okay, that's the whole thing. And there's been some more good news from Trump and putting guard duty down there on the border. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know all the details on that. Just today, Governor Brown said he would send some California National Guard troops. He was the only border state that hadn't acquiesced right away, and he put some conditions on them that they can't make arrests, but they can help out with operations. But so now there are 4 states they're going to add to the assist the Border Patrol. I don't know all the details there, but certainly we need all the help we can get at the border.
Okay. Okay, now what we talked about was you're saying that you had California still trying to become a sanctuary state, and you had cities that were objecting to that. Can you go into that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, you're right, Richard. As you and your listeners probably know, California has passed a number of laws to make it harder to apprehend illegal immigrants, to where California is being known as the sanctuary state. The politicians in Sacramento are billing themselves as the state of resistance. And then, in turn, the federal government, the Department of Justice, turned around and sued California, saying it was interfering with the federal government's preemption in the area of immigration to enforce immigration laws. And now some of the localities, some of the cities and councils, city councils and county board of supervisors are pushing back against Sacramento. And so you have, and they're billing themselves as perhaps the resistance to Sacramento and to California. Orange County passed a resolution saying it was going to join the federal government lawsuit. So it's not going to be just the federal government against California, but also some counties, maybe some cities, several local cities like Los Alamitos, Shasta County have passed resolutions saying that they feel compelled to work with the federal authorities, that they don't have the authority to fight the federal government on immigration, so that they're caught in between. Some of the cities are passing, we're going to assist with a friend of the court brief and amicus brief saying that they weigh in on the side of the federal government. So this has been an interesting development as localities which bear the brunt of what happens in our communities are pushing back against the state government in Sacramento.
Now, let me ask another question too. It might be somewhat you already probably know this. How much are they really trying to educate those immigrants, those illegals, as to why that they have broken the law and defining that that they should really understand that? And are the other quote immigrants or Mexicans that are Mexican Americans, are they part and parcel of that process of educating them about the fact that they're breaking the law? Okay, have they done that, Cap?
Well, has who done that?
I'm thinking about one, the state for that matter. Governor Brown and his people to educate those people about the fact they've broken the law and that we have a process here. It's almost similar like Mexico, because
Okay.
they have a process too. And they'll tell you up front you're breaking the law and you can't come here.
And they,
Right.
But I'm just asking.
Well, I think Governor Brown knows they're breaking the law. He's got a law degree, but he's not interested. I mean, he sees it as his political benefit to not enforce the laws. And so, and I think the illegals who have broken the law, I mean, they're aware of it too, but they're saying, well, we're here to work, and you can sympathize with them if they can get away with it. If the federal government or state government doesn't enforce the laws, I mean, a lot of people are going to take advantage of that. So, I mean, I have at least some sympathy with that, but they are breaking the law, and if they're caught, they should accept the consequences. But Governor Brown is simply not interested in enforcing the law or in helping with the federal government. I mean, no one is saying it's the state's primary responsibility to enforce immigration law, but we want, even aside from immigration, we want our law enforcement officers to cooperate with one another.
Right.
You know, the local level, the state level, the federal level. And it's not just immigration, it's like when they have alcohol, tobacco, firearms, when they do a raid, when there's something going on with them, you need assistance from local authorities to block off traffic, various things, so it'll be a safe situation. And what you have with these sanctuary jurisdictions is when you have someone here illegally who's committed an additional crime, has been picked up by the police, and the local authorities won't honor a detainer request from ICE, that means they're going to be back out on the street. So even if you know where they are, you're in a more dangerous situation than if you pick them up at the jail. You'll be going into a home looking for them, you'll be out in the streets, you'll be in a public area, so that makes it less safe for the ICE officers, just for the public being around. And that's why you want a controlled environment like the jail, where they can be handed over from one authority to another. So it's definitely creating a danger here.
Okay. Well, I just might add a little more to it. I'm thinking about, there were two entities that were basically given citizenship under the Republican Party. Two groups, right?
okay.
You got me? Now, those groups are American citizens, and in many ways, I think that those particular groups that have citizenship are not communicating, if you will, for the folks who are illegal, if you will, from the standpoint of saying, well, we want a sanctuary city, as if to say, well, maybe they might be taking our citizenship away for some strange reason. I'm trying to make some sense of this thing from the standpoint, why aren't the people that are here that were given citizenship and those who are already citizens not actively getting involved and letting the people know, especially the rest of Californians, know that, hey, we're not responsible, but we are engaged because we are American citizens and we want to solve this problem too. We do not believe in, i.e., this crime thing. What do you think?
Well, I think, a lot of people do feel like that we have laws on citizenship. The United States has been a very generous country,
right,
accepting immigrants. We accept far more than anybody else.
Right.
And so we have people who've come here legally. They've played by the rules. So some of those people are the most resentful of people who don't follow the rules, who are breaking into line. And you can see that with some of these actions that that are being taken now against the sanctuary city by localities that I mentioned. I think in Orange County, 3 of the 5 supervisors are Asian American, and they're the ones who voted to join the lawsuit against it. And the mayor of one of the other cities, he was being called a racist. He says, "I'm a Japanese American. I'm a descendant of recent immigrants, but my family played by the rules."
Eric, Rick, check this out. Rick,
go ahead.
Rick, check this out. We need Mexicans doing that kind of thing.
Okay.
We need Mexicans saying, okay, fine, you're breaking the rules. That's where I'm coming from. You got me?
Okay.
I'm talking about those folks.
Well, you're right. But there are groups of Latinos and Mexican Americans that support that, and some of them are vocal, and so we've worked with some of those. But it gets to be a difficult situation. I mean, you have some people who are here legally, or maybe they were born here, or they married somebody who's illegal.
Right.
So they have. So some of them have sort of like vested interest in not seeing the laws enforced.
Okay. Well, I mean, it just boggles my mind.
Okay.
It really does. It boggles my mind that the folks who are Mexican Americans who are living here now don't realize the negatives that they're going to be left with as a result of this issue of sanctuary cities, because
Okay.
they're being identified as part and parcel of the problem.
Okay.
See, now here we go again, another race issue.
Yeah, seems pretty hard to get away from that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just to present the other side of that issue, and obviously, I'm with you in this, but part of it is our fault that we've kept giving amnesties. So,
right.
In a way, it's like saying, well, we have a law, but we don't really mean it. And so some of the responsibility goes to the federal government and our history as well, that we had this big amnesty in '86, and we said we're going to do it once, never again.
Yeah.
But then we started doing it again. There have been I think 6 or 7 amnesties since then. They've been smaller. We have something called temporary protected status for people who are here if they're here illegally, but if something has happened, like an earthquake in El Salvador or something, say, okay, we're going to give you short-term status because it'd be really difficult for you to go back now. Your country's very poor.
Right.
We did the same thing with Haitians, and then we don't enforce those. When it rolls up, we give an extension. And we give an extension. So there are people here, who came illegally, and we keep giving extensions. They had an earthquake that happened 10 years ago.
Right.
So a lot of the fault lies, with our own government and our own elected officials who haven't really enforced the law. And it's been abused by further amnesties, further extensions of temporary protective status. So we're sort of seeing a mixed message that we have a law, but maybe we're winking a little bit and say, okay, we don't enforce it, or maybe we're not going to enforce it against agricultural workers. And so we need to enforce the laws we have more than we need new laws.
No, I'm agreeing with you. In fact, we have the same problem that we're faced with here in Oregon, because there's a petition going out right now to repeal the whole issue of sanctuary city. Now, remember, in Oregon, we've had a sanctuary state for years here.
That no one knew it.
No one even knew about it. You got me? And that's why I'm making that point about the fact that now those Mexicans who are Americans, now guess what? Their citizenship may be jeopardized just from the mere fact that they're Mexicans.
Okay. All right.
You see what I mean?
Well, since you mentioned an initiative, because I had the same thing in California, a group has started an initiative to overturn California's sanctuary law, and in Nevada it's happened as well.
Right.
Although it was the court struck it down, say it didn't follow the rules, but they're appealing that decision. So there are a lot of efforts going on. I mentioned the localities here, and then you brought up the initiative, and it's going on in at least a few different states. So there's we're pushing back now.
Yeah, it's really a sad note. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the raising of the flags. I mean, we've got to go back, in all due respect. A lot of the things that we're talking about right now, we need to go back in history. Sometimes that history is negative. Sometimes it's positive.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I happen to be a black American. You know what I mean? But that history, if you will, when Lincoln, the 16th president of these United States, remember? And then we were having that the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and then Lincoln got elected on that from the standpoint of making us all Americans. Okay. And then all of a sudden, I think what would this country be like if had he not been shot? Because you remember, because the deal was he made the Confederacy person the vice president. You see, he made him the vice president, and when he made him the vice president, meaning that the Civil War was still going in their mind. The North and the South aspect of it. So now all of a sudden the man's died, and all of a sudden, and we're still basically in a kind of a mini Civil War kind of a thing. And we got to go back and understand that in history, that at one point in time we were all together. We were really together under the revolution. We were fighting. We were all together. Then all of a sudden, once we got together, we organized and said, "Okay, fine. Now we're together." And then all of a sudden, boom! Then we get the Civil War. My point is that now we've got all of the various cultures that we have here now, and everybody want a piece of the action. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody want a piece of the action, and they're not understanding what that flag, those 13 colonies were all
They
about.
all want to be on Facebook.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. 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 So I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing. We need to educate. Or if not that, let's say as far as Oregon is concerned, I'm interested in, for instance, we had a berry picking situation over here in Oregon, and all of a sudden somebody came up and said the kids were basically getting their monies for their schools and this, that, and the other, and the legislature comes in there and says, well, you can't pick berries anymore.
I
Remember that?
remember well.
Remember that? And then all of a
Happened
sudden,
to me.
and then all of a sudden, here comes the illegals. First they were just basically pickers, and then all of a sudden they stayed here, and then all of a sudden they didn't go through the process.
That's right.
And so basically greed got us that way, because guess who was follow the money? Who was making the money?
Farmers.
That's right, farmers. So bottom line, so they shouldn't have been here. We had a process where they would basically come in during the summer, pick up the vegetables or whatever, and then go back. Everybody was happy.
That's right.
And in fact, there is a special temporary agricultural visa that is available to growers, and so they so it's not really a problem. I mean, and generally, and you hear these things like, well, all the food is going to, all the crops are going to rot. We won't have anybody to pick the food if we enforce our laws. But that's not really the case.
No, it's not.
Visas available, like you say, there is a legal process for doing that.
Right.
And to some extent, we're subsidizing agribusiness, especially if they're hiring illegal workers at low wages, because I mean, those people have kids. They use welfare services when they're not when it's not in season. The kids take money to schools. It's a big cost for state education.
Right.
So we're subsidizing them to some extent, and we're also retarding innovation, because if you buy a bottle of wine from France or from Australia, it's much more likely to be picked by machine than it is here in America, because we have this cheap illegal labor. And so but we subsidize it by having to pay for schools. And the same thing, I mean, back in the 60s, they said, well, if you don't have illegal immigrants, you'll pick tomatoes. And so they invented machines to pick tomatoes. And so we're retarding innovation. I mean, the United States should be a leader in innovation, especially like agricultural technology, but we're falling behind because we've got into this where we depend on low-wage immigrant workers.
So that's exactly what we did in the Civil War. That's what the war was all about, the North and the South. The North had the machinery, and the South had the human machinery.
That's right.
Exactly what happened. You hit it right on the button. And we need to understand and recognize that history, and it's about the money. And we got to in order we're going to solve this problem, we got to get the people to the table who are basically getting the money. It's like that E-Verify situation. That's a joke. That's a joke.
Go on.
That's a joke. My point is that we right up front with it, they sign up many illegals, and we all know. How are you going to hide 20 million people?
That's right.
They're not homeless over here in Portland.
They're
not Portland. You don't see any Mexicans on the street.
That's right.
Never thought about that.
Seems that way.
You see the people who had the jobs that are on the streets now, because now we've accepted the fact that these are jobs that Americans don't want to work. Give me a break.
A lot of those people that are homeless have jobs, but it's just not enough.
Yes. And we use them. We use them. We hire them, and we pay them under the table, and this, that, and the other. So hey, we're I hate to put it this way, but we're responsible in many ways.
That's right.
And that's why we've got to deal with it now. We can't afford to keep hiding this situation here, because otherwise our country has gone to bags. Where are we going to go?
That's right.
Then all of a sudden we get a bunch of guns. Everybody's buying guns, waiting, if you will, for the revolution.
The next revolution.
I hate to put it that way. What do you think, Rick?
Well, it's sort of like the people who want open borders seem to be saying two things. Like when it comes to high-tech jobs, they're sort of saying, well, we need foreign technology workers. So because Americans are too stupid, and when it comes to labor jobs, they say Americans are too lazy. And so you sort of wonder, how did we ever build this country? If Americans are a bunch of stupid, lazy people. But if you don't pay people decent wages, Americans will do work, and then that should be the basis for our economy and for our labor policy.
Well, let's be, what's the group that we've been fighting for just recently about not the baby, but the illegal Mexican Americans, the young one. What was the name of the
DACA?
The DACA.
Yeah.
The DACA situation. You think those people are going to school to pick berries?
What do you think about them, Rick?
Well, and you probably know that the Trump rescinded it by executive order, but that's being held up in court now.
Right.
So we'll still be waiting on that and seeing how it goes in the courts. And then there was another program, DAPA, DAPA, that expanded DACA and dealt with the parents of the
right.
so-called young illegals or young dreamers, and that one was challenged immediately, and so that one that was challenged under Obama was still in office, and that was down in the Fifth Circuit, I think. And so far, the Fifth Circuit has suggested in language and that it at least issued a temporary stay, so it hasn't been put into effect. So at this point, DACA is in effect because of court action, and even before Trump got in office, DAPA was kept from going into effect by court action. So that's what's going on there.
Well, as you can see, I mean, it's getting to be more and more of a mess.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than just being very upfront.
That's right.
This is the law here. This is the system, and this is not the system. You break the law.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying? You call Mexico up and say, hey, what are you going to do about this situation here? In fact, here's your invoice that you owe me.
Okay.
What do you think about that, sending them the bill?
We're trying to do that.
Huh? What do you think about that, Rick?
There have been times where the states tried to send a bill for the cost of illegal immigration to the federal government, but
not the federal government. I'm talking about
I
the
don't think they were
Mexican
successful
government.
in recouping their costs.
What about the Mexican government?
You're right. That's where we should be sending the bill. Yeah.
Right. I mean, let's be honest about this. I mean, it's something that's affecting us all. It's affecting us all on both sides of the aisle. We need to tell them the facts and stick to it.
Mexican is not easy on immigration. They don't want you to come in easily into Mexico. That's definitely impressive.
Well, I don't want to pay this bill I have here that's costing me. It's costing me all kinds of stuff for medical. If anything happens, they will take my home, and all of a sudden I'm in foreclosure. I can't look forward to retirement, if you will, and living in a home because it gets taxed over because I got to pay that bill.
Yeah.
So Rick, but you're in a prime seat. I know you got all the answers, so that's why we called you, because we're trying to figure out where do we go from here.
Okay. I'll listen to him.
Okay.
Well, we have. Certainly, you've got your problems. California has its problems. I mean, I would encourage your listeners to get involved with the initiative effort up there. If it's and maybe you can tell me what the status of that is. Has it qualified for the ballot, or are they collecting signatures now?
Yes, they are. In fact, I tell you what, you can get my show on YouTube. You can get on YouTube, Oregon Voter Digest. Oregon Voter Digest, YouTube. And I'm going to be interviewing the people who are leading that petition on my show. It'll be on YouTube. My show is on Sundays from 4 to 5. So after that, you can pick it up in the it's a live stream.
What's the petition for?
The petition is the repeal, if you will, the state sanctuary state action piece. They're repealing
for Oregon?
For Oregon.
But not for the city.
No, for the whole state.
Okay.
That's for the whole state. So you'll be able to look at it. So that's Sunday, the 22nd. You may want to think about that. Okay.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, because it's just starting now in California. It's actually being led by a group where a number of their by parents of children who were murdered by illegal aliens. And then so they formed their own group to draw attention to the problem, and they're the ones who are leading this effort to put an initiative on the ballot.
Oh, cool. Somebody has to have an answer, see? And then that's why I'm saying, in fact, we had an initiative here on the driver's license. The driver's license, and it passed.
That's right.
It passed.
That passed, right, to repeal the Oregon law?
What was that?
And that passed in Oregon to repeal the driver's license law?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we got that done. And the same group is doing it this time.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we have to do that to show the politicians there's another side to this, even in California and Oregon.
Well, we need to clean the swamp. That's what we started about. What about
right
before we got Trump? Everybody said, "Hey, let's stop." No one wanted to raise their hand and says, "I'll do something." So a guy comes to the table and says, "Okay, fine, I'm going to do something." And the whole thing was about cleaning the swamp.
Okay.
And now all we see today is we've got a CNN. That's all they talk about is how do we get rid of the guy?
Yeah,
and they were part of the swamp. So let's not forget that piece. Everybody, no one was it. Just as long as not in my backyard, solving the problem.
Okay.
You got me? No one wants to raise their hands up and say, "Hey, it is a problem." See, as long as it doesn't affect their pocketbooks.
Okay.
But then when it starts hitting you and you start getting those bills, the rent starts
That's
going
right.
up. That's
And
when all of a sudden
they're already there.
What are we doing?
Bills are already there.
So yeah, we're supposed to be cleaning the swamps right now, and we got a guy to do it. And like I said, hey, that's another issue. How do you guys feel up there about the swamp situation and the president?
Right. Well, we're a nonprofit, so we don't get involved with candidates. We don't endorse people. Certainly, we have been calling for a long time for stricter immigration laws, for reducing the limits for legal immigration. So we can take positions on legislation, but we avoid talking about individual politicians and individual candidates.
I got you. But it is an issue, right?
Oh, absolutely, and certainly we've been supported. Finally, somebody is trying to do something about immigration because there's been so much talk for so long. I mean, we can go back. I mean, I've been working on this issue for a long time, and for people who followed it, may know that there was back in the 90s when Bill Clinton was in office. You can actually, I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but somebody put up a video where they juxtaposed things that Bill Clinton said about immigration and things that Donald Trump said about immigration, and a lot of them were very similar. You can, what used to be sort of, standard rhetoric before we became so politically correct was calling for enforcing our laws against illegal immigration. But of course, Clinton didn't actually do it. But during the Clinton administration, when there was a lot of concern about illegal immigration, that's when we had Prop 187 here in California.
Right.
And Bill Clinton appointed a U.S. Commission on Immigration Reform, to do all. They did like hundreds of studies and round tables and all of this. It's still the gold standard for looking at immigration, more thorough than anything else that was done. It was chaired by Barbara Jordan, who was the first African American congresswoman from the South. She was from Texas and had a generally liberal voting record, but was staunch supporter of civil rights. And a lot of people were afraid that she would, maybe fall into these liberal cliches about immigration. But in fact, the commission issued recommendations that called for reducing legal immigration by a third, for no amnesty, for enforcing our laws against illegal immigration. And what's amazing about it, given the polarized political climate we now face, what's amazing is that almost all the recommendations were passed unanimously. 5 Democrats and 4 Republicans. And I think some of the votes were only 7-2, but most of the policy recommendations passed unanimously. And it was presented to President Clinton. He said, okay, I agree, we're going to do this. We're going to, reduce immigration. He's quoted his press secretary is quoted in the New York Times as saying that, but there was no follow-through. Nothing happened. He put the study on the shelf. If somebody had started doing something, 20 years ago when this commission was done, we wouldn't be having all the problems we have now.
Yep.
I mean, that's sort of the history. I mean, that may be more detail than you want to know, but but some of us have been involved with this for a long time.
Well, you know, in all due respect, I grew up in Texas. I was born in Louisiana, in Houston, Texas. And in fact, I was living in a ward, the same ward that Barbara Jordan was living in.
Oh.
So I knew Barbara Jordan. How about that?
Excellent.
See?
Excellent.
And in all due respect, it was a black community, and we elected her to deal with our issues.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? And then, like you said, this issue of job became an issue within our district, in that district from the standpoint of Mexicans coming in and taking the jobs.
Yeah.
So she had to get to the table to try to negotiate that piece because we were demanding that, hey, what about our jobs?
In other words, they really are. In other words, I see these things come out to say they're not taking American jobs.
Oh, they are big time.
That's not true.
Big time.
It's not true.
No, big time. They are taking them big time.
Right.
And you know, because we already have a system where, from the standpoint of saying, when you commit a crime, you do the time, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, they had jobs there too as part of that whole restitution piece. You got me?
Okay.
But now today it's gotten worse because the jobs are taken, and some of those guys are doing the same. Because everybody got to eat. Everybody has to eat, Rick. Got me? One way or the other, they're going to put food on the table.
I mean, the commission's pointed out specifically that the people who suffer from not enforcing the laws or on illegal immigration, so the people who suffer are those at the bottom of the economic ladder, because that's where most of the people are coming in. So it depresses wages. I mean, some people now in in El Salvador, they know there's a job lined up for them. They have networks, they have connections.
Yes.
So they know they're going to have a job in Los Angeles when they get there. And sometimes they'll hear a job about it before people hear about it in the low income areas in our own country.
That's right.
And that's why we need to do something about it. I mean the economics of immigration are complicated. There are lots of different studies, but unfortunately a lot of economists say, well, you need more people for more growth. But you need an increase in productivity. You can't have unlimited growth forever because we have limited resources.
Exactly.
But in fact, the leading economist on the issue is Harvard economist Jorge Borjas himself. He's an immigrant from Cuba, but he's repeatedly shown with his studies that immigration doesn't make that much difference to the overall economy, but it hurts the people at the bottom. I mean, those are the ones who get hurt.
Exactly. And normally those people at the bottom, if you will, all of a sudden crime goes up because, again, like I said, the guy got to put some food on the table.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden we cry about, gee, crime is going up, and then we try to blame that person. Well, the bottom line is they can't eat. I mean, it's just something else. In fact, I'm running for office now, Rick, and Richard knows that.
He is.
I'm running for county commissioner. I just got off of running for the mayor of the city of Portland, and there were 15 people, and I ended up number 4. I was number 4. The present mayor that we have here now, he's a young man, but but they didn't want him to debate me because I'm pretty upfront about everything. Got my point? And so we got a serious problem with the homeless and things of that nature. But I'm running for county commissioner, and the county here in the Portland metropolitan area is called actually it's a 4-county it's a Multnomah County. There are 4 districts in the county, and I'm running in one of that. It's the poorest, the poor people, and that's an issue. The same issue exists there. We got the same issue there. I mean, the fact is, so I'm saying, no, I'm going to force a meeting to sit down and figure out what are the problems, but I'm going to make sure we understand who are the Americans,
okay,
and who are the undocumented aspect of it, and then we're going to have a serious talk. That's why I'm going to have these folks that are doing this petition to come here in Portland and just kind of educate folks about why they are having this petition and the impact that it has.
Okay, and he's got a good chance of getting in office. I think there's
great.
Yeah.
Looks pretty good. So we're gonna really get down there with Rich and I.
Yeah, I mean we have an obligation to our neighbors, to our communities, to our friends. We should be looking at home for people who need assistance, and we can't be 911 for the entire world. Not everybody's going to be able to come here and ask for Americans to look after them or to give them jobs. There are 7+ billion people in the world, and so we have an obligation to look after our communities.
And it's inhumane, and it's inhumane to treat those people that way anyway. Got me? You see, to tell them the truth. That's the bottom
stay
line.
out and become citizens.
That's right. You tell them the truth. I mean, why should we lie to them about the fact that we have a system? Why can't we just be
Fine.
upfront? Because I know when I go to Mexico, I have to show all kinds of things about
Paperwork. And all.
paperwork and that. Well, and if I want to live in Mexico, guess what? I've got to show income
Oh,
that in fact
right.
I can provide. If I don't have the income, they will not give me citizenship, Rick. And you guys are right next door to them.
Sure.
Maybe we can start our own deal, and everybody goes to Mexico. Maybe annex it or something. You think we can do something like that?
Oh, that's almost what they're trying to do.
No, I'm talking about
Separate the western side of it.
No, I'm just saying maybe that could be the wall. We annex it, then we got it all under one roof, and then we can say, okay, fine, now we all working together. Uh-oh, I don't know if that's going to happen. Go on, Rick. You got some other goodies there? Talk to us.
Well, this will remind me of another issue of about how other countries enforce their laws, and a lot of times people say, well, America's an immigrant nation, so we always have to take in immigrants. And again, we've been very generous, but I mean, if you look back at the history of the world, people have migrated all the time. Every nation has been an immigrant nation at some point.
Sure.
There's no person on this planet today who can trace his human ancestry back 100,000 years and say my ancestors have always been in this current nation state. And so when we look at other countries, it reminds me of another issue, which is birthright citizenship.
Yep.
And in the United States, if you're born here, you're an American citizen. And that used to be the case in a lot of countries. It used to be the case all over Europe. But they looked at it and said, okay, well, maybe that made sense a century or two ago when it was difficult to travel from one place to another, and to take a boat across an ocean took a couple of months. But it doesn't make any sense anymore when somebody can jump on a plane and fly in and say, I want an asylum, and while he or she is waiting for that asylum request, some kids are born and they become citizens. And so it doesn't make any sense to attract people to come here illegally to then have kids, what they call birth tourism. And so the countries in Europe got rid of it. It was on the ballot in Ireland. So it's interesting that a lot of the leftists who really like to talk about European values and so on tend to ignore that the countries there got rid of birthright citizenship. England used to have it, France used to have it, to where in fact, I mean, actually Australia and New Zealand, recent immigrant countries, in some ways like a similar history to the United States, they both used to have birthright citizenship, what I call ABC, accidental birthright citizenship, because I don't think it's required by the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment was to make sure that former slaves had citizenship, that they were U.S. citizens, that there would be no question about it. So it's a real legal question as whether it requires giving citizenship to somebody born here. So I bring that up. I mean, that's another policy we endorse, is that we would like to eliminate what is called birthright citizenship, and I think it can be done by legislation. The Supreme Court has never ruled that that it applies to people who are here illegally or here on temporary visas. So if you tried to do it, some people think you have to have a constitutional amendment. I don't think that's the case. The court has never ruled on it. Some of the leading legal scholars have said, well, I don't think so. So let's pass the law and see. I mean, as it is now, we have what it says. The 14th Amendment says is under the jurisdiction thereof. So that has not been interpreted by the Supreme Court. As it stands now, we don't give American citizenship to the children of diplomats who are born here. So, an ambassador is here, has kids. They don't become American citizens. So anyway, it's interesting that sometimes we should look to other countries and see what they're doing rather than just say, well, we've always been an immigrant nation. We'll always be an immigrant nation. Sometimes some changes are needed, and so maybe birthright citizenship made sense a century or two ago, but I don't think it makes sense anymore.
Well, tell me something. I'd heard that, maybe you can share this with me, but I'd heard that one could buy their citizenship. I'd heard that some Asians were basically being able to, if they had so much money, they could actually buy citizenship in America. Is that fact?
Well, no, there is an investor's visa that if you invest a certain amount of money, and I don't know what it is, then you can come as an immigrant on that. That doesn't automatically entitle you to citizenship, but it does put you on a path. So definitely, and then some other nations have this too. So definitely, if you have a lot of money and if you put it in the right places, it puts you on the road. I wish I knew more of the details there. I don't. So it's that turns out to be a small number, but still, that's like you say, we are close to selling citizenship at that point. I mean, related to that and to what I just said about birthright citizenship.
Right.
There's what they call birth tourism, where there have been ads in like newspapers in China and Korea for pregnant women to come to the U.S. It's all set up. There are places to stay for them. So they're coming here specifically to give birth to an American citizen, which gets them a ticket to if things go sour in their country, or even if they just want to come back. I mean, if you have a citizen child, then that child is able to sponsor for parents and additional relatives, which brings us to the problem of chain migration. Where if you we decide somebody can come here legally, or we give amnesty to somebody, or the offspring of someone who's illegally born here is a citizen, then when that person is an adult, he or she can petition, say, well, I want to bring my elderly parents, they need assistance, or I want to bring my brother. And if the brother comes in, well, the brother is going to bring his wife and their kids and her parents. Anyway, so it goes on and on. Eventually, everybody can come to the United States if you extend these family preferences of chain migration. So that's another issue that concerns us.
Anything to get an anchor baby.
An anchor baby is the term, yeah. So if you, same thing with the birth tourism, you come here, you give birth to a child. That child has entitled to be here. But even if the parents are here illegally, then have the kid, it's very unlikely they're going to be deported. And they get, if somebody tried to deport them, they'll say, oh, we've got a kid here, the kid's a citizen, so it gives them a leg up. That's definitely a problem.
But that's what I'm saying. As you're talking about, as we're talking about these things, those are the problems that they're getting added on. There are more and more problems, if you will. You know the point?
If you keep having
these exceptions,
anchor babies, chain migration. I thought Trump was cutting down on some of that.
Well, he's proposed changing the family preference, the chain migration, and making it more merit-based, like other countries do, where you sort of assessed points and see what your educational skills, what your English language ability is. But in terms of those rules would more likely require legislation. And there is legislation that would do that. There's legislation we're supporting called H.R. 4760. It's a bill by Representative Goodlatte, which would do a number of the things, sort of bring together a number of things we want. It would make E-Verify mandatory for all workers. It would eliminate family preferences beyond nuclear family. So you could bring in immediate family members and minor children, but you couldn't bring in adult parents. You couldn't bring in brothers. So it would substantially reduce chain migration, and that's what we would like to see pass. I mean, it's if I remember correctly, it passed committee of the House. So there's a chance it could pass it in the House, but it would be very difficult to pass in the Senate because, there you need, even though you have a Republican majority, you need 60 votes, so you need some Democrats to go along with it. But we'll be pushing that, and we'll see, because it does give some DACA, a partial DACA amnesty, because that appears at this point to be the only way you could move it, is for those of us who think immigration is too high to maybe support something with a limited amnesty if we can get these other things, because that's just sort of the way things are lining up at this point.
Okay. I think what he's done is try to cut down. Everybody forgets what this is all really about, and it's about overpopulation.
That's what it is.
We just don't seem to realize that's what immigration is about. They're going to be the worst part of our overpopulation situation. We have to think in terms of, first of all, this country is full, and it was full some time ago. So why are we taking any more anybody now?
Right, and sure, and that's what brings me to the issue, and then I've been concerned about population growth from all its sources for a long time. I mean, one way to look at it is some of us are old enough to remember that first Earth Day back in 1970, and there was a saying at the time that, well, if you don't have a population policy, you don't have a conservation policy. That it's that important. And back in 1970, I mean, most of the population growth was from what we call natural growth, people having large families, having more kids, more people being born than dying. But in fact, that's not occurring anymore in industrialized countries. The fertility rate has stabilized around 2. Most people are having small families, and if you do that long enough, the population quits growing. So what we're seeing is that most of our population growth now is coming from immigration. And again, looking at that jumping off point of the first Earth Day, California's population has doubled since then. The world population has doubled since then, so there's no shortage of people who want to come here. And then the U.S. population has grown from about 200 million to 327 million today. And so basically, immigration policy determines population policy.
Exactly.
And a policy that made sense when Go West Young Men and the Homestead Act and all this open space opened up. That's over. That's been over for a long time. I mean California is more densely populated than Europe is. We think of crowded Europe and old world, and here we are in the new world. And California is more populated, like I say, more dense than Europe. And I know up in Oregon, you don't want 5 or 10 million Californians to move up there and crowd your area. So we really have to look at the basics here. David Brower, who was the first executive director of the Sierra Club, said, overpopulation is our biggest problem, and over-immigration is part of it. And David Brower was on our advisory board here at CAPS, and so he was the foremost environmentalist of the last half of the 20th century, I think it would be fair to say. And certainly he took it seriously. He understood that population growth, overpopulation, over-immigration were environmental problems, and we need to look at those.
Well, I want you to understand something. Things are changing here in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
I hope for the right.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yes. I mean, we're having some real issues here now, and we're trying to catch it, if you will, before it becomes a problem, a disaster. And that's an issue. And all due respect, that's one of the reasons why I'm running. I want to just be very honest and just let other people know and get people involved in it to understand what that process is. We have to be honest about this situation.
I'm going to read you something that I have to read it even though it's in the paper. Illegal immigration comes and crime nationally, as they do in Arizona. 2016 would have been responsible for over, if it had been like this all over the country, as it is in Arizona, they would be responsible for 1,000 more murders, 5,200 rapes, 8,900 robberies, 25,000 aggravated assaults, and 27,000, call it, burglaries. And that's what it would like be spread out all over the country.
Wow.
If it was the same as it is in Arizona. So
We're going that direction.
yeah, that's right. That's
But
why,
I think though in the roundabout way, on the positive side, Rick, I think that we're going to solve that problem.
that's right.
Because we did start this thing out about cleaning the swamp, and like
Need to do it.
Richard said, that really was the issue, but no one wanted to touch it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we just said everybody sits around and look at CNN and keep going back and forth, CNN and Fox for that matter, and go back and forth. But you can see things are they're gonna have to change.
Right.
We got an election coming up for the president, so to speak, after 4 years. But I don't see anything on the D side.
Okay.
I don't see any Democrats saying, well, look, I'm getting ready to run. Or if not that, any Republicans willing to challenge, if you will, Trump.
Okay.
I don't see either one. Any ideas? What are your thoughts about that, Rick?
He's not a politician.
No, he's not a politician, but just what are your thoughts about that? I mean, leadership is rare nowadays because no one wants people to be looking in their closets.
Okay.
Right?
Well, it's going to be an interesting midterm election. I mean, the pundits are saying the Republicans are in trouble because Trump's not popular. Well, I guess we're going to find out soon enough. But I think you're seeing some, like I say, you're seeing some pushback here in California, which is a very democratic state, and immigration is on the minds of a lot of people, and it's. The politicians, I don't know, are they really in touch with this? There was a Harvard-Harris poll which found out that most people thought immigration levels were too high by fairly substantial numbers. And this is a mainstream polling organization, and you know how the media love to put Harvard in the news, and so when I read this and I looked at it, looked at the questions and the numbers, and I listened to NPR wondering what they're going to say about it, and they didn't put it on at all. Yep. You know how that goes with the media, and this was a major survey and received scant attention, but and it showed that people would support a DACA amnesty, but they wanted things like mandatory E-Verify and like, getting rid of chain migration. The stuff that I mentioned, those were all packaged in that one bill. So, people are generous, but they realize too much is too much. And so, it could be that there's even more of an undercurrent out there than some of the mainstream media and politicians realize.
Well, I put it this way. I'll put it this way, Jay. When we said clean the swamp, I didn't see but one guy at the end of the day stood up and says, "Okay, fine, I'll clean the swamp."
Oh.
And I'm saying his name happens to be Trump, okay? And so I'm saying now, if he left tomorrow, I wonder how many people would be willing to say, "I'll take that baton."
Yeah.
I bet it would be a rarity.
Okay. All right.
Are you understanding what I'm saying, Rick?
Uh-huh.
It's easy to say I want to run and I'm gonna do this. But when you start asking, quote, a politician specifics, they don't know, right?
Okay, right.
So we're not interested in a politician. We're interested in a leader that will deal with the issues. Straight up.
And it's fair to say that the pundits and the prognosticators and the forecasters missed what happened the last election, So we'll see.
We hadn't quite covered that DACA. I just wanted to say I don't understand why some of those people can't go back to their families in those countries where they came from. Their families are probably waiting for them. So why don't they do that?
It's funny about when you talk about deporting people, which is what the law provides for, that you have people saying, no, we're going to be breaking up families. Well, I think there are two things. One, some people abandon their families to come here in the first place. So for some people to leave would be returning to their families, and for those people who have family here, there's nothing in U.S. immigration law that says their family shouldn't leave with them. So if people leave the country, whether voluntarily or are being deported because they've broken the laws, why don't they take their family with them? There's nothing in U.S. immigration law. If they abandon their families, it's their own choosing. There are schools in Mexico and schools in every country around the world.
Yep.
So it's, I mean, this is one of the big lies that gets put out there is, oh, you're separating families. You're separating families. Don't deport people and separate families. No, keep the families together. I mean, those who are here illegally should leave and take their families with them.
Well, you just mentioned the other issue, which is comparable to that. It's called homeless. A lot of people that are sitting out there homeless, look at it. They do not want those bills anymore.
They don't get the bills.
No, that's what I'm saying. They don't get the bills. So say, why should I go on and let you go to recycle me back to the point that got me out here to begin with? I'm happy now. I don't have to pay any bills. I got food.
That's true.
I can do anything I want to do. I can just lay out here in the sun and
no electric
bills,
no gas,
no nothing, no stress. Right? You got me?
Right.
Are you seeing where I'm coming from? Basically, that's the same concept that we're talking about.
Yeah, you're right. I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, when you're commissioner, you can clean all that up.
Oh yes, very much so. But I'm gonna have you there, though.
Yeah, we are just.
But we're not gonna be politicians, though. You got me? Ours is just, hey, we're gonna take care of this issue, right, Rich?
Right.
The threesome, the three musketeers. You, Rick, too.
I'm twirling my mustache even as we speak.
I heard that. Well, like I said, we're having the conversation, but we're being real about this stuff, and that's what I'm saying. If I'm elected, that's my platform, and I'm dealing with it that way. And all I say is, hey, if you want to quote clean the situation up, then here's the platform to do it. If you don't, you can vote this way or you can vote that other way. And if I don't get it, then as far as I'm concerned, don't call me.
Oh, right.
Don't call me. I'll just get my sleeping bag and start staying out there myself.
Oh,
and the hell with bills. Well, I wouldn't do that because that's just not my attitude.
No.
But anyway, we're about 2 or 3
That's
minutes.
right. No, I want to thank you very much for calling, Rick. It's just we came close to not having a show, but
it's a pleasure having him. It's a pleasure because it's a timely pleasure.
Right.
Timely pleasure.
I'm excited. I can't wait to listen to our show again.
Exactly.
Really.
And check out 22, Rick. Remember that now. 22 on the 22nd, if you will. Okay. I'll look at it up on YouTube. It'll be on immigration. All right.
I hope somebody can get that stuff because I think it's awful hard to get stuff that's on YouTube. And
I know.
So this is the same one you mentioned earlier, the Oregon Voters Digest?
Yes, sir.
Or
Yes, sir.
We're talking about something in addition to that?
Yes. Right. You're right. As Bruce Broussard with the Oregon Voters Digest. And if it goes well, we might just go on and play it over here again. Richard and I might do it again.
Yeah, right.
I jotted it down. I'll be looking forward to watching that.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, buddy.
Okay,
it's a pleasure.
we're going to hang up now, I guess. And
thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Time.
Thanks very much, Rick. Okay.
Goodbye now.
Now we got a few.
Okay.
Okay, now we're done. We're done. Okay, look like we're back. IPO. I'm Bruce Broussard, and Rich we just got through with the other show, right, Rich?
Yeah, right.
Okay,
That was a good show.
And so that was really good. It's on immigration, and it's kind of interesting that we did it because we got this initiative that's coming up right now on the whole issue of sanctuary city. Sanctuary state for that, and then looking at repealing it. And that's going to be a very interesting election. And some other things are going to be very interesting, if you will. One, like if you will, as a result of the Florida shooting in the schools. The guns things have got to be a major issue over there now. And then
yes.
Yeah, very, very major issue. And then out of that, it came out of the assault weapons kind of a situation that came up, and folks are concerned about what is the definition of assault weapon, how did it get into our system, if you will, its implication to the Second Amendment right along that line, and at the same time, guns in schools. Then they're trying to figure out what is the definition of guns in schools. Everybody's sitting around the table trying to figure out what is that going to look like. How are you going to mix apples and oranges, and you know what I'm saying, and education with youth. You know what I'm saying?
That shouldn't be too difficult.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yes.
Guns in school.
Yes, that's going to be a very interesting piece. So, but we have with us our own expert,
right,
who happens to be here locally, John Sweeney. There is John right here. John has been on the Voters Digest. He's been here. But my point is that he's spent a lot of time in that particular issues. He knows the associations that he's involved in. He's a sportsman along that particular line and the like, and so I thought it's kind of a pleasure to get John. And in fact, in the past, John and I have invited a number of gun organizations, and in some cases we were able to get some. In other cases, we weren't able to get some.
There's more than one?
Oh, gee, they're all over the place. They're all over the place. Oh, they're all over the place. So he's going to tell us about all of this.
How do you find out about them?
Through John. We're going to get John to give us a little knack.
You can look it up, and the deal is there's specialty groups. Some of them are for hunting, and some of them are for general rights and stuff like that.
Let me get you introducing you.
Yeah.
We got to make sure this is John. Now let's get into that discussion. Yeah, keep going.
So the thing is that
talking about associations, right? Gun down.
Yeah, there's the African American Hunters Association, and there's the National African American Gun Association, and I'm sure there's more of that. And then there's the
we had them here.
Yeah. Oh, you did?
Yeah, we had them here. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the Gays for Guns and the Pink Pistols and the Jews for the JPFO, the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. And,
really?
And
wow, look at that.
Then there's the Second Amendment Foundation, Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms,
really?
And the Gunners of America, and of course the NRA, National Rifle Association.
I thought that was the only association that was.
And each state has the state affiliate. Like the Oregon State Shooting Association.
Okay.
And of course there's the Oregon Firearms Federation and things like that. So there's a lot of organizations, and we try to get the fact that all these gun laws that come out are against law-abiding citizens, because the thing is that 98% of the people are law-abiding citizens, and out of the 2% that are criminal, 1% or half of them are into white-collar crimes, tickle the ivories and clean out your bank account. Think of Bernie Madoff. He stole billions of dollars over decades.
Wow.
Decades. He was the pillar of society until things went to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
He was a con artist.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
yes. And then you have the other that's into physical crimes, but 6 out of the 10, they're into stealing your stuff, stealing your car, stealing your bicycle, breaking your house, stealing stuff. And then 4 out of 10, which is less than 1 out of 200, is into where they would pick your pocket to kill you or something in between. But most of the time, what they want is your money and stuff. And they push this thing on, with the press. It's a shame that it's all about ratings. So they're out there sensationalizing all these events. There's a boogeyman behind every bush and in every shadow, and that if it bleeds, it leads. And so they're out there bringing that up all the time. And you look at the crimes that don't involve firearms, they just slip off the back of the stage. In fact, I think the maximum was about 22,500 people that were homicides and justifiable interventions. Now, what do you mean by that? That means that criminals were killed by police or citizens. And in fact, statistically, citizens kill 4 times as many criminals as the cops do. Because like you say, is, you know, when seconds count, the police are minutes away. And of course, recently with all the cameras and stuff, some of the killings by police have been suspect.
Okay.
In fact, a recent report came out in 2017, as of November 7th, the police had killed 1,900 people. And that's with 54 days left in 2017. And because they've always in the past, it says something goes wrong, well, I was scared. Well, the deal is, you and I are in a service, the deal is, we've got scared a lot, you know. Even in peacetime, the deal is, the sergeants have a good way of scaring and enlisting people. They are really good. See? And anyway, the deal is that all these laws that come out are affecting law-abiding citizens. And like to say is that gun control is not about guns, it's about control. And in fact, because we're here in Portland, you know, look around, they're building all these apartments with no parking. And they're building,
incredible.
They're putting all these bioswales in, quote, for the environment, making it more and more difficult for people to have automobiles.
Hell yeah.
Well, and the thing is, you know, a lot, especially poor people, they have a lot of jobs at places and times not served by public transportation. And understand one thing, there are no 24-hour cities in Oregon. And in fact, in a lot of cities, a lot of states, there are no 24-hour cities.
Right.
I mean, you could look at Nevada with Reno and Vegas, and California's got LA and something like that. But if you look at, say, Montana and Idaho and all that, or if you look at Hawaii, let me tell you, they roll up the street at 10 o'clock, you know. And so all of that is, you know, you know, you go to New York City or Washington, D.C., it's a 24-hour city, because the deal is you can walk out and catch a bus at 3 in the morning just as easy as 3 in the afternoon. But that's not the case in Oregon. And the other thing is, when they catch a habitual criminal, and the first thing they do through the plea bargaining thing, you know, say they held up a 7-Eleven or something like that, and they start the plea bargaining, first thing goes away is the gun charges. And the thing is, it's like those laws never existed. And in fact, the feds have been saying, give them to us, because that way they're going to be gone for 10 years. Well, you know, the jurisdictions that do that, they've got Sammy and Susie that held up the 7-Eleven, and they had firearms. They call up the FBI, they come down there, and it says, well, guess what, Susie and Sammy, you're going to be gone. But the deal is, the criminal justice industrial complex, they like to have the crime rate up where people are concerned.
Money.
But not enraged. See, you know, look at Los Angeles. You know, if the blacks are killing blacks or the Latinos are killing Latinos, that's okay. If the blacks are killing Latinos and vice versa, that's okay. But if they wander out into the white neighborhoods, they stomp on them then.
That's a whole different ballgame.
Oh, yeah. And it's all about Jinghua, money.
About that money,
And this is the trouble, you know, if the feds wouldn't give them the money and they had to support their own systems, maybe that would change a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But the thing is that all these laws that they come out with, they're just against law-abiding citizens.
Interesting. In poor communities.
And the other thing is politically correct, you know. Home invasion is really a terrible thing, but they no longer call it that, because they want to call it a hot burglary. See, a burglary is where no people involved, so they call it a hot burglary. Well, in highly restrictive cities like Chicago and New York and Washington, D.C. and Boston, it's about 40-45% of the time the people are there.
Yeah.
Because the restrictions on the people having firearms is pretty high. And so that happens. But you get out here, the people at home about 10 or 12 times, and they've done all the surveys. They don't want to come into your house to face a armed civilian, because the armed civilian, especially law-abiding citizen, you can legitimate shoot a few times, and so you actually, the cops are going to kill me for this, but the deal is, the law-abiding citizen that shoots a little bit, it's a better shot than a lot of cops. In fact, they talk about concealed handgun licenses. They says, well, that should have a shooting portion. Main part about concealed handgun licenses, when to shoot is more important than that. But the police only have to hit the target 50% of the time, and so some places they required them to hit 80 or 90%, and then he get concerned and says, look, fellas, we're on your side. Look at a lady committed suicide by cops. She had taped a gun in her hand. 2 police officers at probably about 20 feet, they fired 41 rounds. They only hit her 19 times.
Jeez.
Remember when we were in, the deal is, we had that 20-inch bullseye.
That's right.
And I had to hit it at 500 yards, and you had to hit it at 600 yards because you were in the Marines when you were young.
That's right.
And that's with iron sights.
That's right. Gee.
Good old days. God, it's amazing we lived through it, right?
Well, John, that's an interesting deal. Now let's bring it home here very shortly. In fact, I was just thinking about the recent shooting just the other night, if you will, with this homeless guy.
I hardly knew about it. Wheeler acts like the whole city is upset. No, we aren't. We're Portlanders. We're just kind of.
Well, the 11-foot or 21-foot rule, and they talk about that. Says, oh, we don't teach that anymore. Well, you better teach them, because somebody's got a knife or a screwdriver or an ice pick. The thing is, and they come at you from 21 feet.
That's right.
They can't get their firearms out to defend themselves.
That's right.
And you figure that you got somebody coming at you, and they're going to put, say, they're 150, 200 pounds behind the end of that point. And the fact is that somebody weighs 150 pounds, they could jam an ice pick through most soft body armor. So you could see where the police are concerned, and when somebody makes that move, they don't have much time.
Yeah. Well, again, on that particular note, I'm glad you make that point, because what happens a lot of times, we don't educate the people before the shot. Understand what I'm saying? We need to educate the people more about the whole idea of those kinds of situations. The why the 20-foot rule and that kind of a deal. We don't do enough of that. We used to do that.
Not easy to educate.
In fact, I was doing that at one point in time in Oregon Voters Digest when with one of the late presidents of the unions, if you will, and they would come on, and talk about this, that, traffic, and the whole 9 yards. I mean, we just don't do enough of that, and hopefully they'll probably reinstate that a bit more, and in fact, educate about each of the divisions, their responsibilities, and whatever. It would be good to do. Okay.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that the court system is handicapped with is the mandatory sentencing, and there was that film number 13, and President Clinton says they made a mistake. The trouble is they're not correcting the mistake. And then the deal is the police have to make the mandatory arrest. He says, you want to help somebody? Well, they clap the cuffs on you and they say they weren't going to help you. You don't really feel that way. And then a lot of times they'll say, well, you want your lawyer. And it says, well, how does that look? It's going to look bad. No, it isn't. It's smart. And the thing is that if you have kids, you want to, say they get hauled into the principal's office or something, they need to say, I'm a juvenile, I want my parents. I'm a juvenile, I want my guardian. The deal is the Miranda decision, when they have to read this thing, and everybody says they should do away with that. No, because now I'm an older guy, and I remember the cop shows, and they'd catch Sammy bad guy and Susie bad girl, and they says, I'm not talking until I talk to my mouthpiece, because they knew they had the rights. But the Miranda decision came around because the fact is that we have a problem, we want to solve that problem. Well, unscrupulous police and unscrupulous prosecutors, you are dead meat. You didn't know that. So the fact is they have to read that and says, listen, I'm in trouble. So the deal is I need somebody on my side. And that's what it means. It means a lawyer. So the deal is the Miranda decision wasn't written for the habitual criminals, because they knew if they'd been through the system one time, jailhouse lawyers informed them right away, and so that they need to, you need to know the fact that they get a little hostile to you. Says, hey, I need help.
Tell me this. Okay, let's go on another area here. I'm trying to focus sort of in our area here in the Portland metropolitan area or the state of Oregon. You got me?
Sure.
And again, like I said, when we started out about the idea about Florida and i.e. the assault weapons, their routine. Now all of a sudden, some things Oregon reacted, i.e. Portland reacted by basically saying, okay, fine, we're going to take something up the legislature, and we're going to take these type of guns off the market, take them out of your house or whatever. They still don't have a plan. Talk to that, John. What do you say? What is an assault weapon?
Well, we carried them in a service. The deal is they were selective fire rifles, intermediate cartridge, for basically using between 3 to 600 yards, and you could, of course, you have a bayonet and you have a detachable magazine and a few other things, and they went from to having pistol grips and stuff like that, and but the thing is that what they have in civilian life is called a modern sporting rifle. The civilian version of the AR-15 and the AK-47s. They've done away with the bayonet lugs on most of them. They're semi-automatic. When you see somebody that has one, it's fully automatic. They've usually filed the sear, and that's all they fire. Whereas they're not selective fire, and but most homicides are not committed with rifles. Now, in fact, the deal is that when when it was at 22,500, it was a little more than half were with firearms, and now it's a little less than half than with firearms, because other means of killing is far more efficient. Such as use a knife or an ice pick, and then you drop your body down a manhole cover, and kind of hard to find a body. And the deal is that because it's not with a firearm, the press is not excited, so it kind of slips off the back of the stove and could slip into oblivion. So it's it takes the sensationalism away, because it's just, you mentioned the gun, and the press and the police react to it as going nuts on the fact, and but smart people are using other means of disposing of you. See? So, I mean, they can take a microwave oven and make a microwave cannon out of it and just cook you, at about 500 yards. They can do that.
Okay, so let's get down again. We're thinking about these assault weapons. I'm thinking about the issue that's on the table right now. How did we get there? I mean, I realize the Florida deal and whatever, but we're there now. And what are people thinking about when they're presented with this whole idea that we need to take these assault weapons off? Is that complete?
Oh no, the deal is, what's screwing up this country now is that you have people, foreign and domestic. The deal is we took the oath. The Constitution, defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And there's a lot of people, they cannot stand the fact that you and we have rights as citizens. And in fact, no other constitution in the world has rights for you and I as citizens. The Bill of Rights. And the advantage of the Bill of Rights is the fact that it's real easy. You could read on one page what the basics are, and they are out to take that away. And it's the gradualism is really just chipping away. And the fact that because they know that they can't take us head on, so the deal is they just whittle us down. Like Vladimir Lenin says, useful idiots. So the fact that you have people, they're having these restrictions on it to restrict all of our things. In fact, one of the commentators was talking about the guy from Facebook. He was there, and now suddenly he's the top of the world, and he didn't want any censorship or restrictions before, but now they're talking about it. Well, the thing is, they're established, so they can turn around and have these restrictions to keep other people out of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
And so the deal is that, in fact, that's with a lot of things with big business. They don't like competition. So one way is that helps is by having a lot from the ADA, Americans with Disability Act. And what happens is you want to start a business, well, you might have to do $500,000 to $1 million worth of stuff to your property and paperwork before you could even open the doors, you know, and most businesses fail within 5 years. And this is just another big barrier to keep you out, see? So by making higher hurdles where you'd have to have more and more money to start up. And so this is another part of degrading our society. And the fact that about the time Vera Katz became the mayor in the late 70s, he come out and then always talked about community, community, community. And look at and you will open up the dictionary with community, and there's communism and all that in there, and it's to drag us down. Lowest common denominator, rather than to get ahead of the ahead of the game.
Like diversity.
Yeah,
Also.
and the thing is that, you know, we need to encourage our young people to finish high school.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of these people are going off the deep end, like the shooter out there at Clackamas Town Center.
Mm-hmm.
He had a bad foot, so he couldn't go in the Marine Corps. You know, somebody could talk, says, well, you know, maybe go in the Navy and be a corpsman, you can kind of slip over. Or the fact if somebody could have got him out there with Shriners and fixed it. But you know, for most people, say guys, you know, you come out and say if you finish high school, and it's real important because so many people are not finish high school. When you finish high school and you get out there and work, you know, generally your first good job, if you don't go into service, is about the time you're 25.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I got out with the city. You know, I did a lot of different jobs, but you know, the city and the fact that I was a laborer, but the thing is, that was a career. And this is what happened, and same with my oldest grandson. He was kind of grumbling, you know, he got out of the Army squawking. I says, look, you're about to be 25. Things are going to click for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of how it is. And this is what guys need to know. It says, you know, from 18 to 25, you're kind of no man's land. Just plot it out, and the deal is, and you're going to achieve, you know, and all these little jobs that you have in between are great for experience. You know, I was a security guard, and I had a contract haul for newspapers, and worked service station, and sold shoes and all that stuff. And then when the good job comes along, you have this experience. You know, and I was enlisted for 13 and a half years, and then when I got to be an officer, this is, how can you do this? Well, when I was enlisted, I did, you know, half a dozen things. See, so it's, so, but you know, if you could lay that plan out so that they could see, rather than just say they come out of high school and things aren't working, the world is dumping on me. Well, no, the deal is it's just kind of that fuzzy lake that you got to get across, and you know, do it that way.
I think when you think about that, when I think about that, I think about the draft. See, the draft sort of picked that up. You know, sort of like when you get right out of high school, you go and you spend 2 years, you get that experience, but everybody has a job.
Yeah, and
Everybody has a job in the service.
yeah, and the smart people, the deal is they came out, and a lot of them volunteered for the draft, or they went to Guard Reserve.
Yeah.
But they got it over with. Because I remember the thing is, back there when they were drafting oldest to youngest before the lottery, it was really tough, you know, because what's your draft status? Yeah. In fact, it didn't make any difference. You had a college degree, you had a master's degree. What's your draft status, you know? And
What's your number?
oh yeah, and you know, and some of the guys they got out and says, well, I don't want to go on draft, so they go to college. Say, well, so they got their bachelor's degree, and then they turn around and they hang for their master's and their doctorate. And so they'd see some young lady, honey, I love you, I'm married and kids, and then in the early 30s, get a divorce, and Mrs. Ex-honey picks up the phone, draft board, guess who's loose? And these guys are getting draft notice in the early 30s. Well, but the thing is, and And when they did away with the draft, one of the real problems with doing away with the draft, that's why we have all these adventure wars. See, because towards the end of the Vietnam War, the deal is all of us, every mother's son was subject. See, if you still had the draft, every mother's son would be subject. And the deal is, all the mothers of the United States, they're not going to tolerate that. You're going to sacrifice my son for nothing? And look at, even President Barack Obama says when he went out and the guys were getting shot up in Afghanistan and Iraq, had 2 shooting wars. You're coming out of high school, even coming out of college, and your best employment option was to go in the Army or the Marine Corps and combat arms. And you figured, what is wrong with our economy? And but the thing is, if they'd had that draft, no, because the women of this country, the mothers would say, I'm not going to tolerate that to sacrifice my son because this war is for money and not for true American interest.
Okay, now let's get you want a couple questions? I'm going to throw these other pieces out there. Okay, what about guns in schools? Let's talk a little bit about guns in schools.
A friend of mine, John Nichols, and he's gone now. When he was in grade school and high school, they had several of the schools, high schools had
ROTC?
Well, they had, not ROTC, they had shooting ranges in them, and he would go out and he would catch the Rose City bus, which is now TriMet. And he would go out there and he had his gun bag, he had his rifle and his shooting gear, and he would get on the bus. And he was doing that when he was 12 years old.
12 years old?
Yep. So that when he was in the 6th grade.
Did he have a gun with him at the time?
Had a rifle, .22 rifle.
And where was this? Where was this?
Portland.
Portland, Oregon.
And he would go off to these matches, and when it was all over, sometimes he'd get home at 12,
But these were 22s. They were 22s.
22s, yeah.
22s,
Most of them single shots, but the deal is, and so they had that, and they had the shooting ranges in the schools, and one of the things that about taking kids shooting is it's a very maturing experience, because the analogy I use is, say there's a bad guy over there and you have or something over there, and you have a big dog and you say sick him, and the dog takes off. You have time to say, whoa boy, come back. But when you pull that trigger, you can't pull it back. And the thing is that you want to make sure what the target is and what's behind the target, and then when you have a chance, if you're on a regular range, you get a newspaper that's pretty thick and you punch a hole clear through it and it says, that could be you. So you want to be careful about when you're shooting and having that, because it puts them in control. Everybody likes to be in control. That's why kids like video games, because they're in control. And the thing is that you build their confidence and you talk about the responsibility. And the fact is that, say you have a .22 rifle and it's 1,200 feet per second, which is pretty abstract, but the deal is 818 miles an hour, which is supersonic. But you get that point that...
What schools? There were no schools around here that had that, were there?
Oh yeah, all over Portland. This John lived in the St. John's area, and let's see, I think Madison High School had one, and...
what year is this about?
Let's see, now, he's older than I am, so we're talking, let's see, in the late 40s, early 50s, But then he just kind of got away with it. They didn't follow the thing, and next thing you know, they start using it for storage, and no, I can't use it. So, and things change, and in the 1950s, you only had to be 16 to buy a rifle or shotgun, and 18 to buy a handgun. And in 1958, I was 18 years old to come home from annual training at Fort Lewis, and went over to the store and I bought a German Luger pistol, 9mm, and it was a 1918 DWM. So
still remember it?
Oh yeah. I did sell it a few years ago because a guy always wanted one, and he says, I really want one, John, and how about $400? I says, for you, Jim. Yeah, okay. So, But, you know, I'd go out to the range and shooting. A lot of people had seen German Lugers, but they had never shot one, so I let them shoot it, and they were just thrilled to actually have a German Luger in their hand.
Yeah.
It was a real good shooting pistol, but it was a little ammunition sensitive, so, but I liked it.
You like that?
Well, I certainly never knew about this. So, very interesting. No wonder they don't want anything, any guns anywhere. I don't know how that stops.
So where's the divide there? You know, and I know you basically. You know, you're in the guns aspect of it, and naturally, in most cases, it's a male kind of a thing.
No.
Uh-oh. Is it a male thing or is it a woman's thing?
In a concealed handgun license in Oregon.
But not the concealed, just guns as usual.
Okay.
Because I mean, you know, I can remember as a kid, I got cat pistols. I automatically got cat pistols, and all of the other young ladies got other things. They got dolls or something like that. But the guys had cat pistols. We was always playing cops and robbers.
Still have one.
Cowboys and Indians.
Yeah, that kind of a deal. So I'm just saying, now that to me was the definition of guns, as I remember it. But then, is that what it is?
Well, a true guide on it is about 16 million people are licensed to carry concealed, and nationally 1 out of 4 is a woman.
1 out of 4.
1 out of 4.
Now I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm still saying. In fact, that's another issue too, because I'm the question I will ask you straight up: why a concealed weapon?
Well,
in their house, or to
they carry on them. Yeah.
And what's the purpose of a concealed weapon?
Well, a concealed handgun it works for self-defense better than other things, you know, because the deal is depending on your size, kind of limits the size of a particular firearm that you'd want to carry. You know, I mean, Shaq O'Neal could carry just about anything. You and I are probably we're all restricted to about a medium-sized handgun, you know, revolver or semi-auto. And it is the influence, the fact that there is less crime out here because of the fact that the influence of firearms are more available out here. So, and some people, you know, they do carry valuables at times. The fact that they have to travel at different places at times, and many times, whether it's with concealed handgun licenses or whether it's somebody coming in a house or whatever it is, the fact the presence of a firearm, and the firearms are presented and the people depart. So the fact that they used a lot of times the fact that you don't actually have to shoot anybody. And you got to clean the thing, and then you got the legal aspects and stuff like that. But it's the influence of the firearms, and that's why we probably have less crime here. But the thing is that look at the Max track over there in Holiday Park when a guy got off the track and he whipped out a knife and he slashed 3 guys, and 2 of them died right there. And I think the 3rd guy that did survive will probably be traumatized for life, you know. And so
yeah, I remember that. Certainly remember that.
In fact, the mayors are going out and they want to go against the preemption law.
Which is?
And the preemption law is that the cities and counties can only have certain restrictions because the state legislatures make the laws of the state. And the regulating, of course, when they can discharge and that type of stuff. And so the fact is that prior to the preemption law in Oregon, which came in the very late 80s, very early 90s, that the city of Eugene had stricter anti-knife laws than they did anti-gun laws. And the fact that I remember when I was young, they always talked about you can't have this kind of knife or that kind of knife, and they really death on it. And the fact that most policemen are more afraid of knives than guns. And I remember in high school we were out there and the police came around and started checking the guys, and one of the guys had a knife that was legal, but the way the policeman measured it, he says it's illegal. He says, but it's mine. He says, well, you have a choice. arrest you and you can go through it, or you can just surrender it. And he surrendered it. So, but the knives, they don't make the noise. There's not the sensationalism, and the fact that it's, if you have ill intent, they work better in your favor than they do with a firearm. Because one of the noise, the other is the sensationalism, even if nobody hears it. So.
Okay.
Wow.
But then let's get, again, guns in school. Where do we go with that?
Okay, well, the thing is, like I said, they had the training there. They have the teachers are trained in it. In fact, they had on television tonight, the school district is issued these mini bats, about this long, blue. And he says, but they have to be locked up. See?
Mini bats?
Little baseball bats.
Okay.
Oh.
Probably don't have enough oomph in them to knock out a fish. And then about a week or so ago, there was one school was issuing sacks of rocks. When they come in there, you're going to throw rocks at them. So it's, if you look at all of the miscellaneous shootings in all of the theaters except one, they were gun-free zones, what we call target-rich environments, people unable to defend themselves. This is why they go to...
They're targets.
They go to these schools, and once in a while they're kind of surprised because there's a citizen that's licensed to carry, or there's a off-duty policeman that's licensed to carry, and they do respond. And look at the Columbine. It happened during the big firearms magazine, but the firearms magazine ban, and also the assault weapons ban, and they just went through the school and they just had a lot of 10-round magazines shot and just really shot, and then when it was all over, they killed themselves because they were checking out when they wanted to, but they do not want to be checked out by a police officer or checked out by you and I. And it's
that's a small percentage, though, isn't that?
You mean that want to be? They want to kill. They kill themselves usually in most cases.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're checking out on their terms.
On their term, but
So they're not having any long-term suffering.
Right.
Now this one in Florida, they caught him alive, and whether they execute him, in fact, he's trying to get a plea bargain, so he's not executed, and he's probably never been confined before, and usually. Like we were at places we couldn't leave or something like that. We don't like that, So
was he thinking about that when he shot all those people?
I have no idea.
No,
they
we don't
knew
know
they knew he had problems, and
Nuts.
they didn't talk to the problems. See, and a lot of them have a feeling of being hopeless, and rather than talking about, what would you like to do? When I was 11, I got this magazine, Air Trails, had these two jet fighters, and I wanted to be an Air Force fighter pilot. And I read the qualifications. One, you had to be a high school graduate. Not finishing high school was not an option. And two, you had to be 5'8", and I was 5'2", so I was afraid to stunt my growth, so I never took up smoking. Ended up being 6'2.5", and I did join the Army National Guard and aviation, but I never became a pilot, and I never went in the Air Force. But the deal is I had a goal. And to be able to talk to these young people, what would you like to do? Well, what is it you got to do to get there? And one of the keys, again, is finishing high school. And like in my case, I finished high school and then went through life, and then I got a commission in the National Guard, and they wanted college for the sake of college. Because as a high school graduate, I just showed up and started taking classes. If you don't have high school, they'll have you take some classes, and that will cost you time and money. And so the deal is when he's young, anybody can be president. So you have, but the people need is young men and young women need a goal, something to go for, and this is the steps that you got to go through. And the main thing, like I said, is finishing high school, and then, like I said, is that foggy lake between 18 and 25 when you're just kind of bumming around. So.
But getting back to safety within the schools and the shootings, where people are trying to react now, trying to figure out what are we going to do. You got me?
Yeah.
Some cases they've said, okay, why don't we arm the teachers? in some cases.
Yeah.
Some say, well, okay,
Said a
fine.
lot of that.
Why don't we put a bunch of cops around, with guns, just walking around and that kind of a deal. And that's where they are, the heads are. But then I'm saying, what about the history? I mean, what were we doing prior to that? And I'm thinking specifically of Portland Public Schools. In Portland Public Schools, they had janitors that were there, and janitors knew who were on the campuses. They knew those schools, and they knew who the bullies were. They knew the whole 9 yards, and they worked it that way. And then they also had a police law enforcement, safety officer type deal, and they were actually regular like patrols. They had their cars and the uniforms and whatever, and they'd basically go around looking at the schools and taking care of those issues.
Yeah, they come in and actually come through, and they have assemblies and stuff. So
Right.
And
so then that worked.
oh yeah, but one of the things that happened in several places, they had police officers assigned there, and then because they were there, there's no trouble, and so they'd come along. Well, hey Herbie, why don't you go down today and check the parking lots downtown, or you make a buzz through the parks or something like that. So next thing you know, the officer that's supposed to be there suddenly isn't because his boss is sending him other places. But the deal is you have to have somebody.
But the point I'm making is this: there were no mass shootings during that time. No. That's what I'm trying to say.
No.
During the Second World War?
No. I'm talking about here at the Portland Public Schools when they had those officers there.
Well,
and the custodians. You got me?
Okay.
Because they knew the kids. Okay.
Right.
They knew the kids. But I'm saying now, all of a sudden, you got some guy who's there, and but he wasn't in school. He graduated, right? He sort of graduated.
Yeah.
This guy graduated. This guy, he was a grown-up, so to speak, and he was picking up guns all over the place, right? And he was rooming. He was a roommate, so to speak, with these folks, and they allowed him to take the guns, et cetera, et cetera. The guy was having problems. I mean, that's like anything else. You see somebody toting guns, around a house, or while you walking down the yard or something like that. So, well, what's this guy doing around here? And suppose he'd been checked and this and that. And then all of a sudden he decided to go to this school, where he had been before, and just started shooting people, right?
Yeah.
You get me? So that's a situation there. But the idea, I guess my point, where I'm going with this piece is that they've associated. There's one situation where kids are going to school, and then there's another situation where the kid has graduated and he's over here, and he just comes back to the school.
Yeah. But I think it's part of the thing is these people have a feeling of hopelessness.
Well, I'm agreeing with you that part.
Yeah.
The guy that's a mental institute, he got some mental hopelessness. But the fact of the matter is that was another issue. That's what I'm trying to say. Are we creating more of a problem by saying now, because that was over here, this hopeless person? Now let's see what we can do. If we can give the other folks, give the schools more guns.
Mm-hmm. Well, the places that have it. In fact, there's some places that do that, and they've got a big sign up there that says, if you have ill intent, you're going to be in trouble, and that changes the complexion, because these people that do this thing, they come in and they do what they want to, and then they check out on their own terms. Whether they
Are you talking about the kids in the school?
No, this is the people doing the perpetrator.
The perpetrator, does the perpetrator go into school there, or they're not?
It doesn't make any difference.
Well, I think it does in a roundabout way. I mean, what I mean, the only reason what I'm saying is that you got a different mindset here as opposed to a kid going to school.
Well, okay, if it's somebody in school, the deal is that they have been bullied, and the fact is that a lot of times the authorities know that they have bullies and they're bullying somebody, and they may know who they're bullying, but they haven't done anything about the bullying. The deal is they get these high-paid jobs and responsibilities, and when you have to deal with a problem, the deal is you and I were in, and we have a problem service manager member, and the deal is that it goes beyond just chatting with them, where you really have to do something, and there's all the paperwork involved. Well, this is the same with the counselors and principals in these schools. The same thing is basically they're not doing their job. And they're relying always on somebody else doing it. And the fact is that they're not doing their job. And the fact is there was an article on the computer tonight that says what they need to do is start punishing these people that are not doing their job. Because the thing is that maybe they didn't shoot your child, but the deal is they basically facilitated the demise of your child or your spouse or,
In a
or
way.
a friend or something.
Yeah.
See, it's because these people are not doing their job. But and the other part they talk about the mental health. Now on the St. Patrick's Day, I was down in Salem, and at the platform convention of the Oregon Democratic Party, or the Democratic Party of Oregon. And so, and I was in 2 different groups, and it talked about violence, and they talked about, you know, the need for mental health, and talked all about it, and then somebody says, but it costs too much, and they dropped it. See, the deal is,
Yeah.
it's an investment. See, and the deal is if somebody's having trouble, the deal is help them soon so that they could be productive citizens, you know, for life. But the deal is they put this cost on these things and they say it's too
Right.
expensive. Well, look at the penalty for not doing that. You know, it's the fear that something's going to happen, or the fact that something does happen, and the fact that we lose, you know, friends and family and stuff like that. So the deal is they're not willing to make that commitment, and that for the mental health and these kind of things, they are an investment, and that investment will really pay off because of, you know, I like guns and I like shooting guns, but I don't like to see somebody get hurt.
There's so much mental illness
Yeah.
with the
already,
homeless,
already.
and I probably with other people
Yeah,
too.
Right. Well, that's the only thing.
Still there.
That jumps in that other area about Wapato, you know what I mean? We need a facility, if you will. We used to have one called Damage.
I've
You know,
been
we
there.
had- Yeah, you see what I'm
I
saying?
had to get a guy to sign some property
Yeah,
over,
see what
as
I'm
I
saying?
recall.
And so we had something there. And then all of a sudden, you know, the developer came up there and said, we want that piece of property. And we tore
Right.
it down. We basically tore it down. And so here we are now. Like you said, we all realize mental illness is key, just like this gentleman that got shot the other night, you know, by the cops. They say now he's mentally ill, the inspector. So if we know we got the issue, and we need to take all those people off the street and vet them to find out who is mentally ill and who isn't, and then basically put him over here and put this guy over here, whatever. But we're not doing that. We're just still sitting back in the corner, and then a guy like that gets shot one night, and then maybe next night somebody else will get shot. You know what I'm saying? So we're not addressing the issue.
A lot of issues are just not addressing, and and it just causes a lot of turmoil because they're running the streets and causing different things, you know. And if some of them are acting up and they're going down the street, fine. But what if the deal is they're coming at you and you're kind of in a corner? You get really bad. But the thing is, the people who are running things are not doing their job. And the deal is that they need to be held accountable, and they have a way, the elected officials just saying, well, it's somebody here, somebody there. And the thing is, a lot of times they say, well, we got the consultants, so it was them, see, rather than saying, this is what we need to do, and this is what we do. And a lot of people don't want to do it. You know, it's, we don't have enough prison space for a lot of our criminals, so they only handle the tough ones, and so you have people that are doing minor crimes and they're getting slapped on the hands and all that stuff. And you know, like Wapato Jail, they need to actually use it as a jail. You know, if nothing else, is inconvenience them for a few hours when they at least the police officer will be able to finish the paperwork before they let the guy out. So,
They said they didn't have enough money to operate.
Well,
Is that
what
right?
they did, because they put the issue up to build it, but not
Yeah.
the issue up to operate it.
Right.
And they've had plenty of time to turn
do that a long
around
time ago.
and put that thing up to operate it.
yeah.
You know, because the deal is it's not the severity of punishment that makes a difference for a prison to be a deterrent. It's the swiftness and sureness. The
Oh.
fact is, somebody steals your car, they're going to be gone. You know,
I'm for that.
see. And then, you know, and so the fact it's the swiftness. The deal is, hey, you stole somebody's car. In fact, in Portland, the area, they joke that stealing cars is a hobby.
That's right.
And in fact, I talked to
It's shameless.
my mechanic, and he says, if they catch somebody stealing cars, says, "Oh, I didn't steal it. I bought it from my cousin."
Yeah.
They let them go, and they call you up. And the
That's
deal
right.
is your ignition's knocked out, so you got to go get the car, and
You don't
there's a
have
towing
insurance,
bill,
yeah,
and there's
yeah.
a storage bill, and then the deal is you got to tow it to your garage, and then they turn around and put the new thing in there. You can be running $1,000 in a heartbeat, because I had one of my vehicles was stolen twice, and the second time the cops, it was on a hot sheet, and the cop just wrote another ticket. And they come around later, and then he finally had it towed. Had to get a new battery and battery leads and a few other things. See, so and some of the cars, the Japanese cars, the guys got these file down keys, and he's running in a few times. Next thing you know, into the car. Next thing you know, they got the thing running.
I don't know why we can't get the legislators to do something about it. I'm sure they know.
True, but see, when Jimmy Carter became the president and they went to the zero-based budget and zero-based budget modified, when you lay something on the table and you have a proposal, a proposal cannot exceed 2 pages. And they look at it's Bruce's great idea. And they looked at the bottom, the money, Bruce, what about the money? Not about the pros and cons about your idea, because they're so obsessed with the money part, and they just don't look at it. See? And it's, other issues is the same thing. They want to sweep it under the rug, and they want to smile and get their picture taken. They want to get reelected, and there's a lot of them. They really resent the fact that they have to come to us to have us vote for them.
Yeah.
Rod Underhill, is he the Attorney General?
Yeah, he's
He's
the
the district
DA.
attorney of Multnomah County.
Okay, he's a good one to kind of get after to improve this stealing car program.
You got to have a place to put them.
Well, see, that's
still the one to go after.
And again, that's the other issue about. I'm going to take just the homeless thing. That's just something that's on everybody's mind right now. Imagine if you were able to take all those folks off the street and use this as a kind of a temporary shelter type thing, shelter vetting system, if you will, at Wapato. They'd be taken over there, checked out, find out who they are, have they committed a crime. If not, then they got to do the waiting game, go before the judge. But at the same time, you've got the policy on the table that says, no, you can pick the person up because they've littered the place up, blah 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 routine. So that's a little short misdemeanor or whatever it is. But they still have to go through the process, right? They go and they get cleaned up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then now they're waiting for the judge, if you will, for sentencing and whatever, right? You know what I mean? Because they got to face that judge. So the bottom line here now is that, okay, while they're there, they get cleaned up and this, that, and the other. Then guess what? That next morning or the next 2 days, you're on a cleanup detail. The sheriff will take you out and start cleaning the place up. You know what I mean? You'll be getting clean. You'll be cleaning the place up. Maybe okay, fine. People are concerned about slave labor. Okay, fine. Okay, we'll do minimum wage, but guess what? You're gonna have to pay. You got to have room and board and the whole 9 yards. And maybe the only thing that you can pocket in your account is about $5 an hour.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So now, to me, that makes some sense, if you will, because we need to know who's on the street. You got me? And that's not happening. And we can use that facility to do just that. Everything is there. The facilities are there. The foods are there. You know what I mean? All that other good stuff is sitting there right there. So to me, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Right. Now, we don't want to forget that you're running for county commissioner.
Yeah, ready for
And
county commissioner.
We're running to the end of the program here. I know one thing I wanted to do. I wanted to end the program with some good news.
Okay.
And we don't have any of that on this program.
Yes.
Southeast volunteers travel to repair water wells in Nicaragua. I think that's just great.
Okay.
I think there's volunteers from the United States can go so many places and help so many different countries. And I want to thank our crew.
Yes.
And I want to thank John for coming. That's so now, if you have any other things to tie up?
Well, no, other than the fact that it's going to be a very interesting election. I've been going to the various
May
forums.
something?
Yeah, May 14th, I think it is. You know what I mean? But
May
you're going to be getting
14th.
your ballots probably about the 19th or something. They're going to be mailed out.
The election's
mailed out.
May 15th, and
Yeah.
the ballots will be coming out
About
about the
29th,
23rd.
23rd or 24th, yeah, in that area.
and
right. That'll be that weekend.
It'd be the Thursday before Friday.
Before they'll be mailing it out.
They'll put it out, so you'll be getting it.
On the weekend.
You'll be getting it on
weekend.
Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
In April.
Right.
Because
But anyway,
the ballots will come out 20 days before the election.
Right.
Oh.
Now and then got the voters panel. They'll be coming out about
About a week before.
a week before. Okay. So anyway, they're going to have an election.
Right.
And
right.
I've been out on that circuit, and it's been a very interesting circuit aspect of it. But the one thing that I've learned is that many of these folks don't have resumes. You know,
Okay.
and they're just politicians. There's a difference. There's a difference. Because I mean, my point to me is that when you apply for a job, it's pretty well defined what the job
You have
is.
a good resume.
But my point is that's what we more need.
Very impressed with it.
That's a very interesting piece. But anyway, it's great, and hopefully you'll vote. You know, you'll get out there and vote, if you will. Look me up, Multnomah County District Number 2. That's what I'll be running for.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, we got about 30-some second aspect of it. And Richard, again, it's always a pleasure being on your show here.
Oh,
It's just been
I'm glad
fantastic.
I'm glad we were able to work this out.
Yes,
This was,
fantastic. And I'm glad John
our call
was there
in
ready.
was good the first hour.
John put on
Hearing
the
all
clothes
this information that you
what is
have,
that?
it's awesome.
John, he's got more than that. But we've talked about it, and that's the key. We've got to communicate about this issue with the guns and all this, that, and the other, because it's an issue.
10 seconds.
Okay, and we got all these mental illness aspect of it, and so it's very important. So, hey, thanks very much again.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's right.
Appreciate it very much. Thanks, John.